Hello everyone, and welcome to Making a Graphic Novel. To close that window really quick. Didn't want too much sound popping in here. But welcome to Making a Graphic Novel. This is going to be spread number 23, I believe I'm at. And I'm going to just keep on moving. So this is my camera, this is my setup. I have these different watercolors. These are koi and these are master collection. I mostly use the koi paint because I just like them better. If you've been watching me for a while, I probably talked about the materials before. I just need to take a sip of water because I am so it's so hot here in Southern California right now, and I just came back from a run, so I'm super hot. And even just a little bit out of breath, so let me just collect myself and let us get moving. So to get back and start, I want to fill in all of my background colors first. I started a little bit this morning. I worked for about half an hour very early on, and I just kind of want to pick up from there. I'm trying to remember what color I use for the floor. This may or may not be the right color. I think I used, let's see. Let's see, I'm going to try this one. Let me try one other color because I really need to mark down which colors I'm using for what, because I tend to sometimes forget. I think this is the right one. It's 193. So in this scene, Jaydi and Sabrina are getting ready to hit the town. Sabrina mostly just peer pressured Jaydi to go. They're going to watch a football game in their town between some high school boys. And Sabrina is not really a sports fan. She just likes to be around all the action, and especially all the boys. And Jaydi is just kind of tired for the most part. Not really feeling like going out to, sporting event after taking care of the baby all day and an elderly woman. But she's reluctantly agreed to go along. And so this is them getting ready to go. Sabrina is I don't want to say she's a frenemy, but she kind of is a frenemy in many ways. Just because she just leaves some very passive-aggressive comments to Jaydi sometimes. I definitely pulled inspiration from my own experiences, especially with friends at that age group, going into the middle school, leaving middle school era, about to enter high school, you're a young teenager, you may or may not be confident enough to really stand up for yourself with someone that you really want approval from, especially if they're your one really best friend. So that's kind of the dynamic that's happening in their relationship right now. I think that I would definitely describe Sabrina as being well-intentioned, but the way she gets it across is just not always the best. And how else would I describe her? She's also just, a barely 13-year-old. So there's that. She just doesn't have the maturity level just yet to really be able to, I think, communicate in the most effective way. And so that's really, I think, a big part of what's happening here is just them being as mature as they are, or as mature as they can be for the age that they actually are. Which Sabrina is almost 13. Not quite yet. Jaydi's just 13 at this point in the story. For the most part, I have everything happening in a fairly short piece of time. I mean, I have a couple of flashbacks that go between like a 1 to 5 year span, but the story itself is happening when we join Jaydi in current day. I think the entire story is probably like, honestly, maybe a few weeks, if that. I know I have a timeline written down, but it's one thing to think about too if you're writing a story and you want to think about from beginning to end, what's the time period? Like, is it all happening? Sometimes you can have an entire like full-length screenplay and it's all happening within one day. I think probably the most famous example of that is Groundhog's Day, and I don't even think I've ever watched Groundhog's Day, but I've just heard a bunch about it. You're repeating it the same day over and over again, which I guess technically kind of makes it more than one day. But it's something to think about in your story. Like, is this something that's spinning out for years and years, or is this something that's happening within a few weeks? Like, I would estimate that from the time we join Jaydi in current day, which is after all of the trauma happens in book 1, I say it's about a 2-week period from beginning, and that's through like the whole series. This is something that's happening fairly quick. There is a jump ahead at the very end where we jump forward a year, but you know, that I wouldn't really include. Everything else, I think, is in a relatively short time span. And sometimes it could be like, if you're doing a story, maybe it could be like in the span of a month, or however long you feel like it's appropriate for the story you're trying to tell. And I think that depends on a couple of different factors. So just depending on like if the seasons need to change, that's something to consider. Is your protagonist growing up in a certain period of time, or is someone growing up in a certain period of time in your story? Another thing I would consider is new relationships. If you're obviously, relationships take a while to build, so if you're trying to build up a relationship over a period of time, like how long do you want that time period to be? So that's another thing that you might want to consider. Let's see. I have my little fan here, which is helpful for the watercolor, but I don't like it to be, I'm doing exactly what I'm saying I don't like. I don't like it to be blowing directly onto the work while I'm doing it, but this is such a small little space, and I think it's going to be okay. Alright, so let me think what I can fill in now. So much of it at this stage feels like just you're just trying to find the spaces where you want to fill in, really. You're just trying to find the slots to get all the color in. It doesn't even matter like what first, like of course you're doing backgrounds, but even still it just feels very like just fill in the blanks. Alright, there was something I was going to color. I think it's the pillows I was going to do. And I am going to be starting the VizDev portfolio very soon. I talked about it a little bit before, and just the fact that I wanted to start another series on art making, and I wanted to do it around portfolio making. So let's see. I did start last week a new series for art educators, and that is right now it's just on the private Facebook group, which is available for patrons. But I'm doing that series for artists in particularly who are interested in getting into teaching, even if it's like a part-time teaching. If you're just starting out, you want to create a lesson plan for your artwork so that you can share what you're doing with other people, that will be a great resource. So hopefully it'll be helpful, because I struggled a lot when I was trying to find my way, and I don't want other people to have to struggle as much as I did, or struggle at all if they don't have to. Because the best people to teach art is actually artists. I mean, there's a lot of teachers who are teaching art who have no idea what they're doing. I don't want to say it like that, but I've seen people who are teaching math, science, and art, and I think that's kind of crazy and wild when you have teachers that are just teaching a span of things. Not that artists can't do math and stuff, but I mean, mostly we can't. At least not that well. But I think that actually, you should have actually artists who are preparing the next generation of people who want to learn art. I think that's the best way for things to go in an ideal world. Not that anything in this world is going to be ideal. Especially the way things are looking lately, but I don't want to be like pessimistic. Let me not say that. I think great things are going to happen in this world. But ideally, I do think that it's best for artists to teach art. So the resource is there. You can go to cartoonartcenter.com if you want to sign up. Or just go straight to the Patreon. So anyway, I want to start doing that, helping people learn how to come up with the ideas for doing VizDev, because I feel like that's where a lot of artists get stuck, is in the idea phase. And I don't want people to feel like that, and I especially don't want people to feel like artists to feel like they don't have any stories in them, or they don't have a story worth telling, or they just don't know where to start when you're trying to tell a story or create something based off of a story. Let's see. I was listening to some videos, particularly on storytelling, just not long ago. Actually, it was this week. Not long ago. It was really literally this week. And there were some really great tips. And I don't know if you guys are familiar with with, her name is Abby Emmons. And she does, she's a writer, and she's particularly like a novel writer. And I know that as artists, we're not going to be like writing novels here, but for the most part. But I think that she was really onto something when she was giving like some tips on writing, and I think they were really helpful for me with coming up with an idea. And some of the things that she said to do was first to pick a genre. And I'm going to see if I can remember all of the steps off the top of my head. It really made sense to me because when I was thinking about when Jaydi's story was new and I was, working through past the dream that I had, which was, an answered prayer, which ended up being an incredible dream. Not everybody's going to have a dream, an inspired dream that kind of propels them into a story. I mean, you could have an answered prayer that turns out to, in a dream, that turns out to be your story. But that was my case. But when it started, it was like an arrow, I would say. Like, go this direction. And I don't know if that makes full sense. But that was kind of how it felt like. It was like, oh, shoot. I think I paid my eye. That's okay. But, it was like an arrow, like pointing like, all right, this is the direction I want you to go. And it started out with just the character. But when I saw the character in my dream, I knew like automatically like the location, I knew her age, and I knew the setting. I knew the mood because I could feel that this was heavy. This wasn't like a romantic comedy. This was, I didn't even know it was necessarily a story at first, but I knew that this was like a heavy, I could tell the mood. But, from there, things just start to develop. I'm thinking like, the next week, and they're doing missionary work in Kenya, and I'm like, oh, that's definitely, part of it. And, one thing leads to another, and you just start digging, and more ideas start coming up, and, it just kind of evolves over time. But a lot of the steps that I went through was what Abby was describing. And it really made me feel that this was a great resource when I want to tell more stories, because I know that there's definitely a lot more stories that I want to tell. Like, I can feel that already. Like, I know that there's going to be a lot of stories that I want to get out. Because once you start telling stories, I don't know if I want to say it's addictive, but kind of, because it's so like, it's really exciting, and it's really freeing to know that you've made something yourself. And so every story doesn't necessarily have to be like a screenplay long, like 100 to 200 page like script. It doesn't have to be like that big every time. Sometimes it could just be a really short story. And I think that works just fine too. And I think with this format, you can kind of use any length. I think it works with like short form, long form. I think that it's a good brainstorming tool. And so I just want to share that. So, the steps. The first step is picking a genre. And it's recommended that you pick the genre that you enjoy the most. So whether it's watching it or reading it, it could be like the comics you read, it could be the shows you watch, it could be whatever. You're just going to pick yourself a genre. Okay. And then you're going to get to know your protagonist. So you're going to, and all of their quirks. So I'm going to try to remember all these steps. So that second step is you're going to pick your protagonist, find your protagonist, and, you know, all of their quirks. And then you're going to also pick a theme. So what is the question that you want to answer through the story? What is, like, the truth that you want to answer? What is the big idea of your story? And that's something that if you're not intentional about, I feel like it could be very simple, like, you know, to trust your instinct. Like, that could be your truth. It could be something as simple as that. But you should have some kind of a meaning, because if you don't have any meaning for your story, then it's really just like another Illumination movie. Like, it's there's no depth. It's just, you know, shallow, and you don't want that. You don't want just 2 hours of gags or 5 minutes of just gags. I mean, comedy is excellent, and I love comedy as a genre, but I feel like your story should never be just comedy. Like, think of when you watch a Dave Chappelle stand-up. And he's a lot different than a lot of other stand-up comedians, and a lot of people don't like him for his, like, you know, the way that he delivers his message sometimes. But if you listen to a lot of his stand-up, you'll see that he has a deeper meaning in there. And usually his deeper meaning is to kind of highlight the struggle of black people, honestly. I feel like that's kind of what he tries to do in his stand-up. Even though sometimes some of the stand-up work that he does is more effective than others, I think that if you really see his work as a whole and listen to, like, the way he kind of plants things, I think you'll see that that's a common theme that he has. So what I'm asking for you is to come up with what your own common theme is, or what is that theme that you want to be happening throughout your story. And for Jaydi's story, one of the biggest questions that I want to ask as a big question, or as a big idea, is like, is it possible to believe in a Western faith despite the oppression that it caused for your own people, or despite the negative impact that it's had on your own people? And that's the big idea. So it's something to think about, and I think that every story should have that. All right, so you're gonna have your theme, you're gonna have your genre, and you're gonna have your main character and all their flaws. And the thing with the main character is their quirk, or their internal struggle, or the lie that they believe, should be the exact opposite of what your theme is. And so as they go through their journey, and as you go through it with them, and your audience is going through it with them, they are uncovering what they have been believing in is not true, or what their kind of quirk that they've been holding on to, they can let go of. So that is really how you get your point across, is you literally drag your character through it. And, you know, you might be like, oh, well, my poor character. Well, that's really, like, the whole point of having your main character is so that through them, your audience can see the question that you are bringing up be solved through them, and they living vicariously through your character. So you're basically teaching the lesson, but your character is the one who has to go through it. They have to be the one to experience it. Oh man, I think I have to dump my purple. Okay, my purple is getting so, like, chunky. I don't like that. let's see. I don't know if it can be saved. Some of my colors last longer than other ones. Like some of them I can leave them in set for a while and they'll be fine. But other ones, they get all ruined. Like this purple one. Okay, well that's not gonna work. Let's rinse that one out. Alright, so I want to pick a background color for this panel here. And I want it to be a not obvious background, so it's not the natural background of the room. I want 176. That's not the color I want. Alright, so I listed 3, and I almost forgot what I was doing. Alright, so you want to have your genre, your theme, and your character. And you want to also have a location, so like a geographical location. So where is this happening? I think that also includes like the time. Like, is this happening current day? Is this happening sometime in the future? Is this happening in the past? Like sometimes you'll have movies that obviously, you know, if you look at Grease, that one was, you know, made in the 80s, but it was supposed to be in the 50s, or sometimes they'll do stuff that's supposed to be in the Stone Age. So, you know, another popular time period pieces, Game of Thrones, those types of things, medieval times. All the fairy tales are like medieval times. So, you want to think about where it's happening and the time period it's happening in. And what's the last one? I feel like there's one more. There's one more piece to the puzzle. And I should be able to remember it. Oh, the mood. Oh yeah, that's right. So you also want to have the mood. So is it going to be somber? Is it a tragedy? Is it a comedy? How do you want people to feel while they're reading it or watching it? You want them to feel excited? Is it like an adventure story? Is it what else? A romantic story? Do you want them to feel like they're falling in love for the first time? So you want to think about the mood. And she also recommended making a mood board. So I thought that was a really cool idea, and something that I actually do as well when I'm making a story, when I'm making illustration. Oftentimes I'll make a mood board. So I thought that was a nice little piece of advice that she gave. And let's see. She also said you should make like a playlist, which I hadn't thought of before really. I have and I hadn't. You know what? I did all of these steps, but I didn't even realize it. I had like 3 songs at first that just totally felt like this is the type of music that it feels like. Like this is the thing that would be on the radio if Jaydi had her radio on. This is what would be playing. So I can't believe I did all this without even like knowing like these steps, but like subconsciously it was just there, I guess, for some reason. So I actually did that, and I actually did a whole art show when I was in grad school with an entire playlist, and I labeled it as like a music and auditory and visual experience, and I had at least 10 songs, and plus I had like clips of like speakers talking, like this woman who is like, God, she was like, I don't remember what her title was, but she was like an ambassador to, I don't remember what country it was. It was a Southern African country, and she just was a really powerful speaker, and I had some clips of her speaking, and I had that in my piece. And I had done all this, like, you know, when was my show? That was like 2019, so it was a few like years ago. But all of this was like part of it. But so that was one thing that she says, is like you make your playlist of like it could be songs, and also like for me, like I used part of a speech, and I thought that was really helpful for me to like set the tone that I was trying to set. And for me, like some of the parts are somber, some of the parts are like dark, but I want the overall theme, I want the overall mood for the series to be like excitement. Like I feel like I want the audience to feel like what's gonna happen next. Or like, oh man, like I want it to feel like an adventure. So even though the somber parts, I definitely have like my mood is one of adventure and excitement and discovery too. That's not the right color. I think I'm supposed to use 23. See, that's why I need to write down colors, because then I forget which color is what. I love this like raspberry color though. Okay. Raspberry. Let's see. Alright, so just to reiterate what all of the steps were. First is you come up with your genre, and it should be the genre that you enjoyed either watching or reading the most. And then you're going to come up with your character and their quirks. And then you're going to have your big idea or your theme. And you want your character's misbelief to be the opposite of your theme. Next, you're going to have your location as well as your time that your story is taking place in. And then last but not least, you want to have your mood. So how do you want your audience to feel as they're reading the story? So I think those are all really awesome tips. I'll put a link to the video as long as I can remember. So if I forget, please remind me. But I thought those were like really good tips. And also remember, like, make a playlist and make a mood board. You can make a mood board in Pinterest really easy by just like looking up like different types of aesthetics or like plants or animals from the area where you want to be telling your story. Let's see. You could also, let's see. Let's see. Fabrics, types of clothes that you picture your characters wearing. Not just the positive characters, but also your antagonists. You want to come up with ideas for them. And like how's your antagonist like trying to stop your character? That's another thing to think about. Trying to stop their character from becoming everything that they're meant to become and learn in the story. And sometimes it doesn't look like a physical thing. Sometimes your character is trying, like, I know that like some of the screenwriting books will say your character is trying to get like a physical thing, but I think as long as you have the feeling in there that they want, then it feels clear. Like they should know, like your audience should know if your character is getting what they wanted or not. But I think there's more than one way to do it. Okay. Let's see. Did I stick my head under the camera by accident? Sorry, I'm trying to just rinse out my brushes. Alright, so let's see what we can do with these color arrangements. Oops. Feels like part of that's still wet. Let me move this. I was at the zoo yesterday. I'm doing the meetup at the zoo once a month now. And let's see. I'm not going to be there that first week of August though. I'm doing it the first Mondays of the month. But August I'm going to be out of town. Planning to go up to North Dakota. See my husband's family that week. So right now I have the next scheduled one that first Monday of September, which the first Monday of September is always Labor Day. So I hope that the zoo is actually open on that day. And if it is, it's probably going to be crowded. Crowded. Okay. I'm trying to think what I want to fill in next. Let this side dry. And I did my last episode for now of studying the masters. I think I'll pick back the series up a little bit later, but not just yet. I'm gonna give it a little bit of a breather. I finished, I believe it's 14 episodes just for this children's book edition, which is pretty good. I mean, I'm happy with that. We did, how many pieces did we do? I think we did 3. They all took like several episodes though. I want to say like 4 to 5 weeks for most of them. Like 2 of them took 5 weeks and 1 took 4 weeks. So that was the whole 14 weeks thus far. I'm just thinking like I'm just gonna give it another break and work on original art for a while, because I mean I love doing the studying the masters, but also I feel like I need to balance it, because I don't want to be known for just doing other people's art. You know, and it's a balance too, because I mean obviously most of the time I'm spending time working on my own projects and my own work. So I think it's important that I show original work that's mine. And that's important for me. So I don't really, some artists do make a living and they do all of their work like as fan art, but that's not what I do. And I'm not trying to make fan art when I'm studying the masters. I'm trying to literally just do a study. It did help me though. It helped me to think about, but I think nothing quite helps as much as just making your own stuff. Like I found it does help me in some ways, but I feel like what's been the most effective for me is just making new original stuff. Like, and finishing it. Because that's another thing too. And it was hard for me to finish work when I was earlier on starting. And still sometimes, like right now I have maybe I'll work on that live. I probably should, because I have a acrylic painting that I started years ago, but I never finished it. And I really love the concept, and I really love the idea. But I think where I got stuck was I didn't have references. And I think I wanted it to be more realistic, but I didn't have references. And I think it can be easy to get stuck when you're trying to make something that feels more real or feels like related to something, but then you don't know what you're making. And I think even more so than having just references, I needed to know what it is that I'm making. I needed to do a little bit more research, but I didn't know what I needed to do. I was confused, and it's happened to me more than once already. Like, I've started something and I didn't have a reference, but I was trying to do something realistic, and then I just couldn't finish it. But now I'm like, alright, I don't want to get stuck, and I definitely don't want to leave it like unfinished. So I've just been trying to plot out what my next steps are. And I think for me, I just want to kind of understand the plant life of the area I'm using. So it's it's basically a twist on a fairy tale, which is kind of, if you've ever seen that Hansel and Gretel illustration I did, when did I do that? Last year, I think. It was a twist on the Hansel and Gretel, obviously. But I did like an African version of it, and I had like this secretary bird, giant secretary bird in the picture. If you don't know what they are, it looks like an eagle and a flamingo had a baby. It's got like an eagle face, but these long flamingo legs. It's a beautiful bird. Anyway, that was what I illustrated that bird with in the illustration. And it was a twist on the Hansel and Gretel. And so now this one it's the story of the 7 ravens, which is a Grimm's fairy tale. And I'm not sure if you've heard of it. Maybe if you haven't, it's not a popular one. I just got this book of Grimm's fairy tales and have been like going through it, and like some of these stories would be fun to illustrate. And that's a great place to get inspiration too. If there's like particular types of stories, especially if they're very old, and maybe you don't feel comfortable writing just yet, you can use those, because that's what Walt Disney did. But it's true. It's a great place to get inspiration from, and you can remix it. It doesn't have to be exactly how it was written originally, because that's not what Disney did either. He didn't just take exactly what was written, and he made it his own. And so that's what you can do if you're trying to think of story ideas. You can just kind of make them your own. And let's see. So what I want to do to finish it is do a little bit of research on the plants, because I think I got kind of stuck with the background. I think it's good to recognize what areas are getting you stuck. So I think for me, it was mostly that background. So I think I want to do a little bit of study sketching with the plants that I want to incorporate, and then go ahead and paint those in. One thing I realized when I started doing more backgrounds is it's helpful to actually know what the plants are. You don't want to make generic plants that all the plants look the same, or just all of them look like just generic sort of plants. So what I did was I got this book of plant life from the area. I got this book of it's called 100 Trees that you'll see on safari, and I don't really like the word safari, but It's called 100 Trees that you'll see on safari in East Africa. So I was like, okay. Even though I don't like that word safari because I'm not really looking as like a tourist. I just want to know like what these plants are. So it gave me a place to start. And I think that's what you just need, some place to start. I think that's the biggest thing for artists. We just get stuck because we don't have a starting point. We don't have a starting point and we just get lost. Like, we don't know where to go. We're trying to think of ideas. We're trying to figure things out. We just kind of get stuck in, alright, well, I don't know where to go, so I guess I should just stay right here. I'm hoping to change that a bit. Because I know what that feels like. It's just like a really crappy feeling. Nobody wants to feel like immobilized, you know? Like they can't do anything or go anywhere. You want to feel like you have the ability to get up and do what you need to do. Trying to find the colors I'm using for these things. So you can probably see I was adding some backgrounds, some background elements after I did my sketch. So I'm trying to fill in where those are now. Like I add this like bag of laundry over here. And I added that mosquito net and the window and the table and everything. And that's why it helps so much to do the viz step first, because then you can really think and plan out where things are going to be in the space. And so I'm learning as I'm going. But it's better to learn as you go than to not go. That's the thing, it's like when we get stuck and we can just sit there and just like completely put it off to the side, which is what I kind of did with this story for a minute there. Because there's more than one way to get stuck too. I mean, we can get stuck in concept, we can get stuck in design, we can get stuck in so many different parts of the process. The characters. You just gotta have to pull yourself out of the stuckness. Whatever that is. And notice like the recurring patterns. Like for me, I notice like, alright, I notice that like when I don't know what to do for the background, then I get stuck. So I'm trying to teach myself how to come up with backgrounds and how to just understand them better. It's easier said than done for sure. But it's something that also gets better with practice, and you can't just not practice it because then you don't get better. And I also want to just make sure that I'm still devoting the amount of time I want to devote to just continuously working on anatomy and the things that help me to make my character strong, doing portraits and all of that. So thinking about all the different things you have to do and all the stuff can feel overwhelming, I'm not gonna lie. But it does not have to be. It does not have to be at all. Like in some circumstances I hear people say, like, if you don't know what to do, do nothing. That's definitely not the case in art. It doesn't work like that with drawing. There will be times when you need to do nothing, but not for the most part, and not when you don't know what to do. You should be stopping when you know what to do and you just need to take a break. That's the time you should stop, when you just need to take a breather. But stopping when you're confused is not a good time to stop. Take it from my own experience, because I've done it and it's not good. Because then you just stay stuck, and that's how projects end up not getting finished. You don't want to get to that point of not finishing work. I guess I can remember what color this was. I'll have to go through all of my old videos and see what color I used for what. So I think that's the only way I'm going to remember. Let's see. Alright, so let's see what else I need to fill in for background before I get going on characters. I know I have these little pictures, but there's a couple of things I want to fill in more first. For instance, with this. And let's see. Get up some more paint for this. All right. Let's see. I'm trying to think what color I used for these paintings back here. Or pictures, I should say. Looks like one of them also used orange, so I'm just going to go right back to that. One is orange, so let's grab orange. It's this one that's this area. I mean, that will absorb. Let's see. Looks like I didn't draw it on this side. And then I have the blue one. I have to change out this water soon too, because it's starting to tint my colors. This one over here is blue, like light blue. And then the other ones are like tannish colored, I want to say. They don't have stuff on them, but I'm trying to check back to in my other pages and see if I have like a clearer image of those. It doesn't look like I do. Rats. Alright. Just gotta work over that. So apparently I've only drawn these pictures once. Let's see. I don't want it to be like that feels too, does it feel too light? I don't know. I'm going to use a light purple for the last one. It looks like that could be. It's going to take forever for these to dry though. So much water I'm putting on here for no reason at all. And let some of that absorb. Alright, that feels a little bit better. This is gonna take forever to dry though. I need to take some of the water off. You see, it looks like a sponge. That's better. Alright, let's see. Oh, I didn't do the other side. So, 4th of July is coming up. Hopefully you going to spend it smartly. By that I mean don't light any fireworks. Watch fireworks, don't light them. I don't understand why people light their own. I've never been interested even the slightest bit in lighting my own fireworks. I just never had the desire. My cousin's ex-husband, and I guess this is a good reason why he's an ex, blew off like 3 of his fingers from fireworks, and I don't know. I know that was like the beginning of the end for them, but I can imagine, because I would be I'd be terribly, like, I'd be so mad at my husband if he was to do that. Like, oh my gosh. I'd be so mad at him. But it's just me. I don't know, maybe some people are okay with their partners blowing their fingers off. But for me, that doesn't seem like a good idea. I don't know. It just doesn't sound positive. I'm just saying, it just does not sound like anything I would want to be a part of. I think I'm going to do another coat on the carpet because I feel like it's... I feel like I didn't get the right color. It should be like more of a green tinted, I feel. I don't know. I don't know if I got the right color for the carpet. Maybe. Alright. I also have like, let's see. I feel like with these watercolors, it never really comes together fully until I do the color, the shading. I don't know if it's just me, but I just feel like I'm never really satisfied until I get to shading. Then I'm like, okay, I like that. This feels like, I'm not even sure if this is the right color for this, but I feel like it needed something. Okay, let's see. I want to, and if I'm going to do it to that, I guess I have to do it to the big one too. Hopefully this is showing better than I think it is. In my head it's like, alright. So let's do this one. For me, 4th of July is very, I don't know, it's not, summer is not really my favorite season anyway. I'd rather be spring all the time, honestly. Summer is alright. I mean, the best thing about summer is, I think, the more opportunity for travel. It just seems like there's more holidays in a shorter period of time, or it feels that way. Like there's more days off in a row. I don't know if it might not even be that way. It seems like there is though. I just like being able to, I like the warm weather. I don't like the overly heat wave weather because I like doing outdoor activities. When it's too hot, you can't really do much of anything. At least, you know, in the prime hours of the day. It's difficult, I'll say. I wish there was a spring all the time, though. I felt like somebody just, I don't know, felt like I saw something rush by me. I don't know. I think it might have been in my head. Alright. Let's see, let's go ahead and finish these last background details so we can start doing characters, because characters are more fun to color anyway. At least in my brain they are. I'm totally like forgetting what color everything is. Let's see, I think I used this color. Now I have to play it off like I picked the right color the first time. That's why I don't like using, I had this new palette, but it's a little bit too many colors for me because it's hard to remember what I use for what. I keep my folder of my binder close to me of all the pages I painted before this to kind of help me remember, but I didn't write any of the numbers down, so it makes it harder. I'll try though. I'll try my best. I'm almost done with all of these background stuff, so let's see. Just gonna fill in a little bit. I'm still not sure exactly how long I'm gonna go on this today. I usually have, whenever I do making a graphic novel, it's usually 1 hour, which we're at right now, but I put it on my planner on my meetup for 2 hours today. I kind of did it by accident, but I saw it and I was just like, maybe. Maybe I'll be on for 2 hours. I'll see how I feel. So it was sort of a mistake, but I kind of just left it and was like, we can see what happens. So I'm willing to go for a while longer anyway. It helps me to stay focused anyway when I'm on the camera and filming. It helps me to not get distracted by other things. So you think this is for you, but actually no, seriously, it helps me to focus. If it's something that, if you have a hard time, like, I don't know, working from home when there's a lot of different things going on, sometimes I can really focus in and just do one thing for hours at a time. But other times it's harder. It just usually depends on the task for me. Usually, especially with the panels, just because, or the spreads, I should say, because there's just so many of them, I get easily distracted. And even more so, I feel like with the second book. One of my coworkers was telling me, and he was actually like, I'm just gonna say he was almost like a mentor for me for a while. Because we were peers, but at the same time, he had been making comics for much longer than I have. And so he gave me a lot of like good advice and insights. And when I was finishing the first book, and he knew I was making a series. He's like, don't wait around for the second book. You gotta make sure you get that done. I was like, yeah, I already started it, blah blah blah. He's like, okay, the second one's always harder. And I didn't know what he meant at first. I was like, second one's harder, what do you mean? And I get it now. I get it. It's not that I thought it was going to be easier, and I think maybe that set me up for, I think I talked about that many times before, that I thought it was going to be easier than the first one. And it's not. It's just equally hard, and I think because it's equally hard and I thought it was going to be easier, that makes it harder. So I don't know. It's just one of those things you just have to accept. It's like, alright, it's hard, but at some point, especially when you commit yourself to actually finishing your work, and like you're doing a graphic novel, you're committed to it, and it's just like, alright, well, it just is what it is, At some point you can't complain anymore about how hard it is. You just do it. I don't know if it's harder to work by yourself or with other people. I think there's pluses and minuses for both. I think that there are difficulties and challenges, and also things that make it a bit easier for both. There's no way that I can say that it's just like a straightforward answer, because it depends. I think for many people, working without a deadline can be challenging. Then but learning how to give yourself deadlines, I think that's part of like the puzzle. If you can, and that takes time to figure out what your timeline is, how you work, how you're happy working, or at least happy enough working. Because it's not going to be like completely a joyride all the time, but you have to find You have to find a balance. That's probably not answering anyone's questions, but I feel that that's the only way to do it. Along the way that I know what I've learned on my journey anyway. Alrighty, I think I may be ready to start doing characters. I think I might be ready. Some of this stuff looks crazy before I put in the shading and the line. I could just feel like the discomfort of it all, of someone who comes in and they just see it. Like, it's just like, you know, when you look at a digital painting and you take the line off and it just looks kind of mushy. That's kind of what you work with when you're painting like this, in this way. It's just like very mushy for now. But the thing is to just know that it's moving. It's moving at its own pace, but it's moving. It's not always. It's not easy to trust that if you're not familiar with the process. But if you get yourself used to it, then you'll know this is normal. Alright, so let's see where we're at now. I want to do some work over here on the, let's see, typically don't like to use this little brush for skin. This is not always as smooth, but I'm just gonna try it because I really want to get those small parts of the character. This panel, the characters are pretty small in here, so it's mainly the reason why I chose this little brush for this. You can do just about anything with that. What is it, size 16 brush in watercolor? It's like, that's my favorite brush. And you can even get into the fine areas too with that type of brush. As long as it's a good quality and the bristles are nice, then you can get into like even these little parts. But I was just trying to be a little bit more detailed. But I know I'll switch back to my other brush. This feels like it's a little bit less controlled. This is a number 8 round. My other one is 16. And those are the only two brushes I use for this. And I want to get into my other one. See, this one is a Master's Touch. So this is a brush they sell at Hobby Lobby. I don't remember how much they cost. They're not that. They're medium priced. Let's say in the teens, I think. And I got a bunch of them when they were on sale. So I have several. You see, I'm out of my regular brown paint, and I'm using my cheap brown paint, and I don't think I like it. It's not spreading well. So I might postpone doing the scan and take a trip to the art supply store, because I need to get more of my koi paints because I'm out of brown. I might try my big palette though. Maybe the big palette brown will work. But I've been using the tube paint for my brown color, and all out of the brown tube. Yeah, I don't like how this color fits. Let's see. The closest thing I have to it is over here. Let's see how it even looks. I'm not even sure if I'm gonna like it, but let's see. Let's see. Let's try this arm. Well, that's definitely a lot smoother than the other paint. I'm gonna move the fan. I don't like the fan blowing on the paint as I'm painting it, because then it dries the paint too fast and it doesn't allow me to spread it how I want it to. So I like to finish an area, to finish a page actually, and then put the fan on it. Okay, there's this. All right. Let's save Jaydi for after, since she's a different color mix. Okay. I like this paint though. Even the pan ones are pretty nice. They stay like smooth, unlike the other paint. So Master's Touch is nice for It's nice for brushes, and it's nice for canvases, but I don't particularly like their paper or their paint that much. I'm thinking of just tossing that one completely away. My frugal side is the only thing that's keeping it around. Just to use like the maybe 2 colors that I actually use from it. But I don't know. I think I just want to toss the whole thing. I think about it sometimes. So I don't know. But it looks like it's so fair with these palette paint. I'm gonna have to, especially with this brown, I'm gonna have to add a bunch of layers. I'm gonna need like, I don't know, at least like 3 or 4 layers instead of 2. That would be the usual that I would use for the tube paint. Because the tube paint is a lot more dense in the color. Obviously it's just like the pure pigment. And so it takes a little bit more to get it out when you're using the pan. Okay. Alrighty, let's see where we're at. Oh, it's already 1:30. Time goes when you paint, like it just, you know, those things, it flies fairly quick for me anyway. And I can start to feel like getting in my zone, which is good, and I haven't felt, it takes me a while, I think, sometimes. To just get in that painting zone. I do want to do an update on the book I've been reading, Selling for Dummies. I took off like 2 weeks. It wasn't necessarily one reason or the other. It was multiple reasons. Timing. It just wasn't the right. I just had some timing issues. There was like doctor's appointments scheduled, and then I just felt overwhelmed, and so I just let it go. But I would like to get back on it because I do feel that book has been helpful for me. I actually wrote my first selling, what is it called? I think pitch. I sound like a not good student right now. But I think, yeah, I wrote my first sales pitch. And that was an accomplishment for me because as someone who is self-proclaimed not a seller, it is a big step for me. And I didn't just write the sales pitch, I also delivered it too. And the sale is still pending, so I'm not sure yet if it was a success or not. I guess I will have to let you know. But I'm pretty proud of myself for that. And I don't think I would have been able to do that if I hadn't been reading that book. So I do think that book is really helpful. And I want to finish it because I learned a long time ago that it sucks to just have books that are half read. You gotta just read it. Just bite the bullet. It's just like having unfinished art. It feels very similar. It feels like a wasted effort. Even though, I mean, it's not. You did learn something from the part that you read or the part that you completed, but still it just doesn't, you don't get that sense of accomplishment that you get when you finish something completely to the end. And I was, not gonna lie, feeling a little bit discouraged because I feel like not getting the type of like engagement or like anyone reading with me really for the book club that I just launched. So that felt a little bit discouraging. So I'm like, you know what, forget it then. In some ways, that's how I felt. But I want to just keep it going anyway because I feel like it's helpful, and even though it might not be helpful immediately, maybe people finding the videos down the line will find it helpful. And if you have been one of the few people that have been reading or watching the book club videos, then thank you for that. Because I think that just the process of learning is really good and really something that I never want to stop doing. Like, I feel like I always want to make sure that I'm intentional about that. So we'll see where it goes. I was listening to this guy. I don't remember what his name is. But he's a black guy. He's older. He's got like a white beard, and he does these YouTube videos that seem like they're geared towards men, but it's okay. I watched it anyway. I found it actually on my husband's YouTube channel because he's been watching all these like rich dad poor dad videos, and one of these was one that came up, and it was about selling. So I was like, that piqued my interest since I'm reading a book on selling right now. And the name of the video is like why people can't sell, I think. It's something along those lines, like why you can't sell, or why something, it's either why you can't sell or why people can't sell anything, something like that. And the point of the video was like, basically, you can't sell if you're trying too hard to sell. If you want to sell so much that you feel like you need the sale, then that's what's preventing you from actually making the sale. And what makes people actually sell is giving up the notion, or like letting go of the notion of whether or not people are going to buy, because it's more of a numbers game. Like, it's more about numbers. And so what you're doing, what sales really is getting more people to know you and like you, because that is how people buy from you, is when they know you and like you. And he talked about his YouTube channel, and I was like, oh, I have a YouTube channel too. But he talked about that and said like how much stuff that he just lends people for free as like information stuff to help them in their life with whatever they're going through. For him, it's like in business, and he just gives tips in business, and that's how he just kind of lets people know that he's there. So you let people know that you're there, and then you give them resources and tools and tips and things, and you don't worry about whether or not you're going to sell. You just let that go. You just do your part to like make people's lives better, and then have something that is for sale. So I thought that was pretty cool and pretty helpful. And I think us as artists, we need as much help as we can get as far as tips like that, because I mean, I said it before and I'll say it again, most of us are introverted, and we have to like train ourselves to even much less speak to people. I mean, much less try and present ourselves in a way to try and hopefully get a sale at the end of the day. The better thing is to just not worry so much about the sale and just improve what you're doing, improve how you're helping people. If you're not helping people now, then how can you be helping somebody? I thought that was a really good point that was worth remembering. Hopefully I can fix her skin tone in this panel, because I really don't like it. It's salvageable, but hopefully, I hope it's salvageable, I'll say. I think it is, but I'm not 100%. At least it's just that first layer. There's still a good 2 layers to go, so hopefully by the last layer it will look alright. Alright. So what I'm planning to do for 4th of July weekend is, I felt like I started talking about it and I totally forgot. That's just how my mind works sometimes. I just start talking and then I go off on a tangent and then completely forget about the main point until it comes up again. I hope that's not overly annoying for y'all, but oh well. Alright, I think I'm going to this panel feels, well, this panel, not this panel, this spread still feels so unfinished. It is, but it's making its way little by little. And this 4th of July, I think I still forgot to talk about it. I'm gonna plan to go camping. I don't know where I'm camping at, but could be in not far from here, but hoping to go camp. I did a little camping on Memorial Day weekend, so plan to camp again. It's a nice thing to do if you don't have too much money, but you want to get out of the house. The weather's nice. You don't have to travel too far, most likely, to find a camping ground that you like. But if you're going to camp at all, I think summer is obviously the best time to do it. And hopefully there won't be mosquitoes. Oh god. I was looking for a place to camp last time and we ran into this giant mosquito filled like nest. Just mosquitoes everywhere. We're like, alright, we're not staying here. So choose your campground wisely. Don't get stuck in mosquitoes. And I think I'm gonna go get some lunch. We just went to Costco yesterday, so I'll make myself like a salad and some rice. Okay. I'm just gonna finish this last layer of brown. Then I think I'll call it for today. Or call it for the live stream. I'll keep painting though. I feel like I just got some kind of alert on my phone. I don't know what it was. The most annoying thing though about these little palettes is you just kind of like you have to like dig to get any amount of pigment on there. I don't know, I think it might be just be certain colors are harder to lift up than others. I don't know why. Little Heidi asking to be picked up by Jaydi. Oh no, I messed up. And Sabrina is like, take your sister to Bendelli. If you've ever watched the series Martin, which you probably haven't, I don't know. They have Sabrina and Bendelli have a very Martin and Pam type of relationship. They really don't like each other. Their only common thing that they have in common is Jaydi. But no, they don't like each other very much. I don't know why I made that dynamic. I just felt like that felt natural to them. And you'll come up with that like conflicts between characters that you might not even necessarily be thinking of, but you're just like, yeah, these two characters don't like each other. These two are like two peas in a pod. You'll have characters and just let them be. I think it's good to just let the characters kind of speak for themselves, because they'll start to speak to you. I know that might, as weird as that might sound, your characters will start to, you'll start to just understand them as you go. And their relationships between each other will just kind of speak to you, I think. And I think it's good to just let them be as they are, because it will feel natural. It should feel natural anyway. Like whatever you're doing in your story should feel, let it feel natural. I feel like when you just let it, when you set the bones, like the basis of the story, and you set the characters and you know who they are, then it just kind of will flow. And the characters will tell you who they like and who they don't like. One thing I was hearing about a character, it was an actress on the Game of Thrones, the new series, the House of the Dragon, and she was saying that she would just journal as their character. And I thought, what a good idea. How cool would it be to just journal as your character, and all these things have happened to them? Like, what are the things that they think about after certain events have occurred that you've written? Or if you're writing their backstory, even, like, what if it's like 10 years before everything happens? Like, what were they doing then? How is it affecting them that made them think how they do now? Those can be really helpful tools to think about as you're writing and as you're creating these little lives and little spirits or little souls. It feels like it. It feels like you're creating these people, and they probably are like they're people that exist, but it's like a different version. People will see themselves in your story. People will see their family members in your story. So I think in a way you're creating these little lives, and people will say, oh, that's me, that's my brother, that's my sister, that's my mom, or whoever. That was my mom's ex-boyfriend that I hated. All those things. One of my characters actually is. In many respects. As long as you are authentic, I feel like, to your characters, then that will read. Alright, I'm going to leave it here for now. Thank you so much for joining me. This was an awesome time. I enjoyed every minute of this. Still, this spread has a long way to go. It still feels very rough, but I think it's going to come together. Well, it will come together. I know that because of experience and knowing all the different crazy stages that these watercolors go through before they're finally done. But I'm enjoying this process so far, and I'm enjoying this spread so far. So thank you so much for joining me on this time, and until I see you again, be grateful, live balanced, be yourself, and have an amazing 4th of July holiday weekend. Alright, see you next time.